Michael Andrews eased his pickup onto the mountain road, headlights slicing through a downpour. 7 years overseas, Kandahar's dust storms, Helmand's shadowed valleys, the humid jungles of Vietnam had honed him into a weapon. Now he sought quiet, a cabin on the outskirts of Atlanta, far from crowds, far from memory, but no distance can bury the ghosts of war. His dashboard held a single photograph: Staff Sergeant Andrews in full combat rig, arm looped around his K9, partner Bruno. The German shepherd's coal-black coat caught the desert sun, eyes bright with purpose. Michael's knuckles tightened on the wheel. They had been inseparable until Operation Sandgate. They'd scouted a supply route, Bruno, sniffing out 4 IEDs. The 5th detonated beneath them. Michael awoke in shock, dazed and wounded. Bruno vanished. Official reports declared Bruno KIA. Michael never saw the body, and in that void, a piece of him died. Tonight's rain pounded the roof like distant gunfire. Michael's cabin was dark and empty. He'd left the door unlocked so he could slip inside after a long drive. He dumped his duffels by the recliner and flicked on a single lamp. Its yellow glow revealed a threadbare rug, a chipped coffee mug on a side table, and the stale curl of cigarette smoke in the air. He sank into the chair and poured bourbon, letting the burn fill the hollowness. Then a bark. Sharp, distant, ragged. Michael froze, bourbon halfway to his lips. He stared through the window. Nothing but rain-driven darkness. The bark came again, closer now, urgent. He pressed himself up, set the glass down, and drew on instincts he thought long dead. He yanked on his raincoat, stomped into boots, and stepped into the storm. Out on the porch, thunder rolled. The bark erupted again, this time unmistakable. Michael followed the sound to the fence separating him from Carlson's auto-wrecking junkyard. He pried open the gate and stepped over mounds of crushed cars. A neon sign flickered, Carlson's, its buzz drowned by rain. Beneath it, a German shepherd cowered, ribs protruding, one hind leg shackled. Blood streaked his flank. The dog's bark cracked into a whine when it saw Michael. Michael's heart hammered. He knelt in mud, reaching for the dog. "Hey boy, it's okay." The dog backed against the post, ears flat. Michael saw fear he'd once seen in Bruno's eyes before a raid. He unhooked the collar with shaking hands. The dog collapsed into Michael's arms with a sobbing whine. Lightning flashed across the sky, revealing the dog's face, black and tan muzzle streaked with tears. Michael's breath caught. He pressed the dog to his chest. "Bruno." He backed away, rummaging in his pocket for the brass whistle he'd used on deployments. Moisture slicked the metal. Michael put it to his lips and blew the 2-note alert only Bruno would answer. The notes cracked through the yard like a summons. At first, nothing. Then the dog's ears shot up. His eyes found Michael's silhouette. He lifted a trembling paw, gave a single precise bark, then struggled forward along the soaked ground. Michael knelt and swept the dog into his arms. The dog nuzzled Michael's neck, soaking wet, sorrow and relief mingling in his eyes. They raced back to the pickup. Michael eased Bruno onto the blanket-lined bed, draped an army poncho over him, then climbed into the cab. The heater sputtered. To life! Bruno huffed in contentment, pressing his head against Michael's shoulder. At the cabin, Michael built a roaring fire. He laid Bruno on a thick blanket, filled a bowl with water, and watched the dog lap it down like a man lost at sea, finally finding shore. Michael sat beside him, fingertips tracing Bruno's spine. "You're home," he whispered, voice cracking. Bruno laid his head against Michael's hand and sighed a sound that echoed in Michael's chest. Dawn's grey light crept through the curtains as Michael slept curled around Bruno. Memories flooded back. Desert heat, the staccato of gunfire. Bruno's bark at an IED's location, the flash of the blast. He'd woken in a field hospital, half-blinded, told his dog was gone, and he believed it until now. Over coffee and stale donuts, Michael studied Bruno's injuries. Limping, dehydrated but alive. He had to know how Bruno survived and why he'd been left chained in a junkyard. After securing Bruno in the truck, he drove into town to Dr. Ellen Ramirez's veterinary clinic. The clinic smelled of antiseptic and hope. Dr. Ramirez scanned Bruno's microchip and frowned. Registered to military working dogs, K9 killed in action after Sandgate. But here's a transfer 2 months later, classified assignment, then radio silence. She met Michael's gaze. "I'm so sorry." Michael's jaw clenched. "They lied to me. They lied about him." Dr. Ramirez guided them to an exam room. She set Bruno's leg in a soft splint. The dog whimpered, leaning into Michael's hand. "We'll treat him," she promised. Michael sat in Dr. Ramirez's small office, Bruno's gentle snores the only sound beneath the hum of fluorescent lights. Binder in hand, he stared at the transfer record she'd shown him. Bruno, reassigned to classified program, date stamped 2 months after Sandgate. "They let me think you were dead," he murmured, stroking the bandaged leg. "But you kept breathing." Dr. Ramirez folded her arms. "I can help with your medical bills, but you'll need to dig into military archives if you want the truth." Her gaze was firm. She believed him. Back in the pickup, Michael dialed Kevin Rowe. Kevin's voice crackled over the speaker. "Mike, you're serious?" "Bruno's alive, Kev, and the Army buried him in a covert ops program." "I've got the transfer memos," Kevin exhaled. "That programs they tested canines on new detection methods, chemical agents so potent their noses overloaded. I heard rumors. Dogs went mad. Handlers sworn to silence. If you start asking around, they'll shut you down." Michael's tight reply carried steel. "I'm past backing down." He spent the next days juggling guard duty at Bruno's bedside and late-night FOIA requests. He combed online forums for references to Operation Sandgate, finding a lone mention of unreported civilian casualties. He reached out to Captain Torres's old radio net, masquerading as a lost handler seeking reconnection. Only one voice answered, a whisper claiming, "Meet at Hangar 12, midnight, come alone." Every evening, Bruno's eyes sought Michael's as he worked on his laptop. Michael saw the dog's trust and felt the weight of responsibility to uncover the truth, protect Bruno, and to forgive himself for believing Bruno dead. Midnight and rain slicked the siding of an abandoned airfield hangar. Michael parked downwind. Bruno lay across the passenger seat, muzzle on the dashboard. Michael slipped on his raincoat, rescued the hunting knife from its holster, and coaxed Bruno out. The dog limped, but did not waver at Michael's side. The hangar's massive doors were ajar. Inside, crates stamped classified formed an asterisk of shadows. Michael clicked on his flashlight. "Come on, boy." A figure emerged from behind stacked pallets, the one who'd emailed Kevin from an anonymous account. Captain Torres, drenched and glaring, pistol in hand. "Thought you'd come," Torres said. "You have no idea what you're meddling with." Michael's reply was calm, measured. "You told me Bruno was dead. Then you assigned him to experiments and abandoned him." Torres's lips curled. "He was an asset. He served his purpose. You can't grasp the stakes," Michael spat. "He's my partner." "You butchered him for your secrets." Torres raised his gun. "I'm not your enemy, but if you expose Sandgate, you'll wish you'd stayed silent." Michael's flashback to the blast steeled his resolve. He dropped to one knee, pulling Bruno behind a crate. "Bruno, stay." The whistle's two-note call echoed across the hangar. Bruno froze on guard, ears cocked, eyes sharp. Torres fired. The bullet shattered a crate behind Michael. Michael dove further back, knife drawn. Torres advanced, gun leveled. Michael tensed, ready to defend Bruno. But then Bruno lunged, an explosion of muscle and bark, fatally knocking the gun sideways. Torres staggered, cursing, as Bruno's fangs sank into his arm. The captain's gun skittered across concrete. Michael leapt to his feet, knife in hand. "Get out!" he snarled. Torres spat blood, whipped a concealed pistol, and fires another round. Michael dove, dragging Bruno toward the exit. The captain's men, masked operatives in tactical gear, poured from the shadows, weapons raised. "Go!" Michael hissed. They sprinted through the rain, bullets singing overhead. Reaching the truck, Michael flung Bruno into the bed, slid behind the wheel, and roared away as Torres's men fired fruitlessly. Bruno, panting, licked Michael's hand through the window. Michael's knuckles whitened on the wheel. They were both still alive, and the stakes had never been higher. Safe in a rented farmhouse outside Atlanta, Michael and Kevin converted the dining room into a makeshift war room. Maps of hangar locations spread across the table, satellite printouts pinned to the corkboard, and a laptop glowed with classified documents. Kevin slid printouts of emails intercepted from the chip's data logs. They planned chemical inoculations on dogs without consent, he said. Look here, Project Sandstorm, Phase 2, field testing on K9 operators. Michael's voice was low, steely. They lied about Bruno. They lied about who we were fighting. Kevin added a transcription of an intercepted voice memo. Asset decommission date, year wait to 14. Dispose of evidence. The flicker of a name, Colonel Finch, tied into brass-level command. They recorded witness statements from 2 former handlers, voices wavering on the phone who'd refused to participate and lost security clearance. One claimed dogs had hallucinated phantom threats, lunging at invisible assailants. Another recalled fixing a syringe to euthanize a surviving dog and being told to look away. With digital copies of operation orders, shipping manifests proving Bruno's movement to the clandestine kennel, and recorded admissions from Torres's men, the dossier neared completion. Kevin looked up. We're ready. Michael patted Bruno's head. Bruno lay on a low bed at his feet, amber eyes drooping yet still alert. Let's finish this, partner. Dawn's pale glow crept over Grand Junction Square as Michael Andrews and Bruno took their positions on the raised platform. News vans and reporters crowded the plaza, cameras trained on them. A banner overhead read, Truth at Dawn, Operation Sandgate. Michael scanned the anxious faces in the crowd, veterans, media, curious onlookers. Bruno lay at his side, muzzle, resting on a folded blanket. At precisely 6 a.m., investigative journalist Lauren Chen stepped forward. Her voice rang out clear and unwavering. Today, we expose the cover-up of Operation Sandgate. Staff Sergeant Michael Andrews will present evidence that the military declared his K9 partner Bruno killed in action, yet Bruno survived, chained and experimented on in covert labs. The truth ends here. Lauren clicked a remote. A giant screen, illuminated behind them, flicking through slides. Official transfer orders reassigning Bruno, chemical inoculation logs bearing Project Sandstorm letterhead, barnyard video stills of Bruno in desert compounds, the anonymous whistleblower's shaky smartphone footage of masked handlers injecting him with unknown serums. Gasps rippled through the crowd as images of suffering and betrayal flashed. Michael's voice cut in, steady despite his pounding heart. Bruno and I served together. He saved my life more times than I can count. I returned to find him declared dead. Today we prove I was lied to, and that innocent lives, human and canine, were sacrificed for secret experiments. He held his hand aloft. No more silence. As he spoke, Bruno lifted his head, ears pricked, as if understanding every word. Michael continued. We have records of civilian casualties unreported to command. We have testimony from handlers who refused to murder their dogs, and we have today's live testimony. It ends now. Applause surged, media cameras whirring. Suddenly, black SUVs screeched onto the square's perimeter. Men in tactical gear fanned out, weapons drawn. Michael stepped back, heart in his throat. Stand down, Lauren shouted, trying to hold the broadcast. An assailant lunged at Michael's side of the platform, intent on silencing him. Bruno sprang up, an instant blur of fur and teeth, and intercepted the man's approach. The assailant staggered, caught off guard by Bruno's precision strike, to the knee. Chaos erupted as security officers tackled the intruder. Cameras continued rolling, broadcasting the attempted ambush live. Michael grabbed Bruno's collar. Let them see, he said quietly. Truth is bulletproof. A week later, Michael and Bruno sat side by side before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Bruno's ears twitched at every shuffle of documents. Senators peered down from the dais. Flashbulbs popped as Michael stepped to the microphone. Honorable members, he began, voice measured. I stand here with my partner Bruno, the dog you declared KIA after Operation Sandgate. I have evidence, classified orders, transfer logs, chemical testing protocols demonstrating Bruno was used as a test subject. These experiments led to untold suffering and unreported civilian casualties. He paused, glancing at Bruno, who lay at attention. Senior Senator Caldwell leaned forward. "Staff Sergeant Andrews, are you accusing the Department of Defense of falsifying war records and conducting unauthorized animal experiments?" Michael nodded. "Yes, sir. They covered up both Bruno's survival and the results of Project Sandstorm." He presented the whistleblower video on a large screen. Senators murmured in shock as masked figures injected Bruno. Another clip revealed internal memos calling for asset disposal. Caldwell stood. "This committee will investigate. These allegations, if true, demand full accountability." Bruno stood on cue, ears alert, and let out a single precise bark at Michael's whistle signal. A ripple of emotion passed through the chamber. The dog who defied death, testifying in his own way. The committee adjourned amid stunned silence, promising full hearings and subpoenas for military brass. Over the next 2 months, public outcry grew. Major news outlets ran exposés. Veterans organizations rallied behind Michael and Bruno. The Department of Defense opened an internal inquiry. Colonel Finch and Captain Torres were relieved of command and faced court-martial for covering up canine casualties and human collateral damage. Reparations were announced for civilian victims of Operation Sandgate. Bruno received a formal apology and official recognition for his heroic service. Michael and Bruno were invited to the White House Rose Garden. The Secretary of Defense read a proclamation. "We apologize to Staff Sergeant Andrews and K9 Bruno. Their courage revealed truths that must never be hidden." Michael accepted a folded flag and clasped Bruno close. The applause that day echoed across the nation. Back in Atlanta, the duo settled into a renovated cabin funded by a veterans charity. Ramps, heated floors, and a fenced yard awaited them. Michael began counseling sessions, Bruno at his side, offering comfort in times of flashback. Together, they started Operation True Nose, a non-profit ensuring K9 rights, transparent service, records and support for handlers. Vet bills, legal aid, and therapy funding flowed through the program. Years softened Michael's edge. His PTSD flares healed under Bruno's steadfast presence. On warm spring mornings, they walked the forest, trail behind the cabin, Michael in his chair, Bruno sniffing blossoms and chasing squirrels lazily. At times, Michael would pause beneath the tallest oak, hand on Bruno's graying muzzle. "We made it, buddy," he'd say. One summer evening, they hosted a retreat for veterans and their service dogs. Michael shared his story. "We believed Bruno was dead. We were wrong. Truth and loyalty saved us both." Handlers wiped tears as their dogs cuddled against them, tails thumping in solidarity. When Bruno's muzzle turned white and his steps slowed, Michael arranged for in-home veterinary care and daily visits to the porch swing where Bruno loved to nap. On a golden autumn dawn, Bruno exhaled slowly in his sleep, whiskers quivering in Michael's palm. Michael lay beside him, voice soft. "Thank you, old friend." They buried Bruno beneath that great oak, a polished stone marking his resting place. Bruno, 2009 to 2024, K9. Hero of Operation Sandgate, at the memorial each Veterans Day, Michael placed fresh wildflowers on the stone. He rang Bruno's whistle, twice sharp, clear into the pines. The echo whispered among the trees. Loyalty endures beyond death, truth triumphs over shadow, and the bond between soldier and dog remains unbroken. In the cabin's library, Michael pinned Bruno's medals above. The fireplace, the Purple Heart, the K9 Valor Award, and the new Congressional Medal of Heroism. He touched the 2-note whistle around his neck. Outside, new puppies trained beneath Operation True Nose's banner, their eager barks the next chapter of Bruno's legacy. And Michael, his spirit mended, guided them all forward, proving that even the deepest wounds heal when truth and love lead the way.